Hello everyone. Today we're going to be talking about the MICE sector. I know a lot of people have an interest in events, in meetings, and doing those sorts of things within the hospitality and tourism industry. So now is the time that we are going to learn a little bit about that. So first question for you is, what exactly is MICE? Now, chances are good that in the past you've heard about the meetings sector or events. MICE is kind of what we use to discuss the entire industry as a whole. So this acronym stands for meetings, incentives, specifically incentive travel, conventions, and exhibitions or events, okay? So this MICE market is really a specialized niche of the hospitality and tourism industry, and it deals with groups, okay? So what you're talking about, whether you're talking about meetings, whether you're talking about incentives, whether you're talking about exhibitions, it doesn't matter. The idea is that you're talking about groups. Sometimes these are quite small groups, sometimes they are a lot larger, but you're dealing with planning for them, booking for them. You are often writing contracts. You are going to be facilitating various different, it might be conferences, it might be seminars, you might have breakout groups, all kinds of different events, and we'll get into that a little bit later. But either way, regardless how you want to put this, MICE and events is a massive moneymaker in our industry. And really every part of tourism and hospitality is touched by MICE. And we'll get into that a little bit later. But first of all, let's get into a little bit more detail with regard to the MICE, okay? So first of all, we have our meetings. Now I'm actually showing you some pictures that I took when I worked in Las Vegas. These were some actual meeting rooms that I used. So meetings, okay, this probably is not a big surprise to you what a meeting is. It's a group of people coming together to discuss or exchange information. To a large extent, these are often business types of meetings. Sometimes they are quite large. So as you can see on the left-hand side with the chandeliers, there's lots of seats in there, so lots of people attending that meeting. On the right-hand side, you can see that's a smaller boardroom setup. So it really depends on the organization and what it is that they are trying to accomplish. If you have a shareholders meeting, you may have thousands of people. If you have a boardroom meeting, you may only have 10 or 15 or 20, and then all in between. Sometimes these meetings are held on site at the organization itself. So for instance, obviously here at UQ, we hold lots of meetings, and they're all on campus. On the other hand, meetings may take place at other venues off-site that the organization does not normally use, okay? So that's why a lot of times hotels, conference centers, those sorts of organizations and those sorts of venues, they host meetings, okay? So there we go, meetings. Next, we have what we call incentive travel. This may be a new term for you, I'm not quite sure. Incentive travel is a little bit more difficult to understand. Again, this typically deals with groups, and this is a little bit different because to a large extent these are actually leisure trips, and they are typically associated or connected to businesses based on the performance of the business and the organization's goals. So for instance, we typically say incentive travel is given to employees as a reward, all right? So let's say you have a car company or you have a bank or a financial institution. They give their employees sales goals, and if those employees reach those sales goals, perhaps they take them on some sort of incentive travel type of trip. So they reward them for meeting those goals, whatever it may be. Sometimes these incentive trips have an educational or business component, but more often than not, it's more based on kind of a vacation for attendees with the aim of continuing to motivate them to perform well. So for instance, an incentive trip might be 4 days long. They might do a gala, and where they give out awards. They might do a golf tournament as part of that. They may do some typical business meetings, but for the most part, the focus is on the enjoyment and the social aspect. Then we have the C. So sometimes, now these different terms are used in different places. So a lot of times conventions are considered really huge, thousands and thousands of people. Sometimes the word conferences is used to denote something a little bit smaller, but again, bigger than a meeting or including multiple meetings. In Europe, quite often they use the term Congress. So again, it's the same thing where you have lots of people there doing various different activities. Again, these are some photos that I took when I worked in Vegas. The primary objective of conventions, conferences, congresses, whatever you want to call them, is to have attendees there for typically educational sessions or informational sessions. They may be participating in meetings, there may be a social event. So for instance, on the right-hand side, Faith Hill did, this was actually a convention that I did for McDonald's. And as part of their convention, they had lots of meetings. So you can see on the left, they had lots of meetings, lots of people there. On the right-hand side, they had a big, celebratory dinner and this was for several thousand people. And Faith Hill came. She actually rode her horse straight into the convention room, believe it or not, and up onto stage and sang for everybody. And so that's why you see people right there taking pictures of her. So you often have these various different meetings. They are there to socialize. Very often they're networking, but often there's multiple different events that are taking part over several days as part of a convention or a conference. Exhibitions are sometimes referred to as exhibitions. Sometimes these are called trade shows. Sometimes they are called consumer shows. I don't know if you've ever been to a car show or a boat show or a travel show. They do a big travel show in Brisbane Convention Center every year where all types of travel agents and travel companies showcase what services they offer. And people can come and see what types of holidays are available to them. But the idea with an exhibition or an exposition is to present various different products and services for the purpose of either selling products and services or just sort of informing visitors as to what is going on. Oops. So when that happens, very often they're based on one particular industry, okay? So on the right-hand picture there, you can see that that's a car show. So very often they're based on a particular industry. Sometimes they're trying to court new clients. Sometimes they are launching new products. One of the biggest exhibitions in the world is held, again, in Las Vegas, called CES, the Consumer Electronics Show. And this is where all of the technology and electronics producers come and they showcase all of these products which we've never seen before. And some of them do end up being actually mass produced and sold to the general public. And then some of them are prototypes which are so ridiculously expensive you will never actually see to come to fruition. But the CES takes place the first week in January. Normally you will see it on the news because that is where they announce the new crazy technology that we can look forward to seeing. And in the past, they have showcased things like the flat screen TV, the DVD player. They showed the tablets there before they were actually launched to the public. So it's a quite interesting exhibition to watch. Now, one of the things that I do like to showcase with the MICE industry is the fact that there is so much value, okay? So this gets broken down into meetings and conventions collectively because very often they take place together, exhibitions, and then of course incentives. So as you can see, in terms of number of delegates, lots and lots of people attending meetings and conventions, comparatively fewer taking part in incentive travel. Naturally, the amount of money is similar. So lots and lots of expenditure, 23 billion plus for meetings and conventions, and again, just shy of 2 billion for incentive. Now, interestingly, I highly expect that incentive travel is going to be going down quite a bit in the coming years as a result of the economic blow that we are finding as a result of coronavirus. But incentive travel is a fun area within the sector to work in, and something that when the economy is doing well, does rebound quite considerably. But this gives you an overall view of the MICE industry. We are going to go into events separately because there's quite a bit to talk to with that. But the E is very often both exhibitions and then also events, okay? So you will hear people refer to the events industry, and very often they're talking about MICE as a whole. Sometimes you'll hear people talking about MICE, and they're considering events as that part of the E. So these are just things you should be aware of. Thank you for listening, and we will continue in the next presentation so that you can learn more about events and then some other important aspects of the MICE industry.